When my husband Victor got promoted to regional vice president at his accounting firm and started bringing home $15,000 a month, he sat me down at our kitchen table and said, "Margaret, from now on, we keep our finances separate. My paycheck goes into my own account. You can manage the household with whatever you make from your little crafts." I looked at him, this man I had been married to for 32 years, and I smiled. "Of course, dear," I said. "Whatever you want." But I knew, deep in my heart, that Victor would come to regret those words. He just didn't know who he was really married to. The engine of Victor's new BMW purred as he pulled into the driveway of our home in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina. I was in the front garden, as I often was, tending to my hydrangeas. The blue and purple blooms were my pride, and I spent hours nurturing them. Victor always said I was wasting my time playing in the dirt. The car door slammed. I didn't look up. I could hear his Italian leather shoes clicking against the stone pathway. Those shoes cost $800. I knew, because I had seen the receipt he carelessly left on the dresser. "Still out here with your flowers, I see," Victor said. His voice dripped with condescension. 63 years old and you're crawling around in the mud like a child." I stood slowly, brushing the soil from my gardening gloves. I turned to face him with the same patient smile I had perfected over 3 decades. My simple cotton dress was stained with dirt, my gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. "Welcome home, sweetheart," I said. "How was your day? Should I run you a bath?" Victor snorted. He pushed past me and walked into the house, his briefcase swinging importantly at his side. I followed him inside, watching as he threw his things onto our leather sofa and tossed his keys onto the glass coffee table with a loud clatter. "Look at me, Margaret," he commanded. I looked at him. He stood there in his expensive suit, his silk tie, his gold cufflinks. He looked like a man who believed he had conquered the world. "Do you see this?" He gestured at himself. "This is what success looks like. Regional vice president. Do you understand what that means? It means you've worked very hard, dear." "Hard?" Victor laughed. "Smart. I've worked smart. And now I'm being rewarded. $15,000 a month base salary, plus bonuses, plus the company car. That's wonderful, Victor. It is wonderful. And that's why things are going to change around here." He stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with the faint scent of whiskey from whatever lunch meeting he had attended. "I've been carrying this family for 32 years, paying for this house, paying for everything. And what do you contribute? You sell homemade candles at the farmer's market for pocket change." I said nothing. "So here's how it's going to work from now on," Victor continued. "My money is my money. I'll give you $2,000 a month for household expenses, food, utilities, whatever. That should be plenty for someone with your simple tastes." "And the mortgage?" I asked quietly. "I'll handle that. This is my house, after all. I've been paying the mortgage for 28 years. "I see." Victor peered at me, looking for anger, for tears, for some sign of protest. I could tell he wanted me to fight him. He wanted to crush my arguments, to assert his dominance. Instead, I simply nodded. "If that's what you want, Victor, you've earned it." His face showed confusion for just a moment before it was replaced by smug satisfaction. "Good. I'm glad you understand your place." He loosened his tie. "Now, what's for dinner? I hope you made something decent. I have important guests coming over this weekend, and I need to know you can handle a proper meal." "I made beef stew," I said. "Your mother's recipe." Victor's face twisted in disgust. "Beef stew? I just told you I'm a regional vice president making $15,000 a month, and you're serving me beef stew like we're living in a soup kitchen?" Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Victor frowned. "Who's that? Did you invite someone without telling me?" "I didn't invite anyone." The doorbell rang again, followed by a sharp, feminine laugh that made my stomach tighten. I knew that laugh. Victor walked to the door and opened it. There stood my mother-in-law, Dolores, and my sister-in-law, Pamela. Dolores was 78 years old but dressed like she was 40, in designer clothes I had never been able to afford. Pamela, at 55, carried 3 large shopping bags, clearly empty and waiting to be filled. "My baby boy!" Dolores cried, throwing her arms around Victor. "My successful son! Regional vice president! I'm so proud of you!" "Congratulations, big brother." Pamela said, her eyes already scanning our living room. This calls for a celebration. Maybe a trip to Europe? The three of us? Victor beamed. All traces of his irritation vanished. Mama, Pamela, come in. You should have called. Nonsense. We wanted to surprise you. Dolores pushed past Victor and entered the house. She shoved her heavy designer purse at me without making eye contact. Here. Hold this. It's Gucci. I took the purse silently. Dolores made her way to the dining room, where I had set the table for dinner. Pamela followed. I heard Dolores lift the lid of the pot on the table. What is this? She shrieked. What is this slop? I walked into the dining room to find both women staring at my beef stew with expressions of horror. Beef stew, I said. It's Victor's favorite. Or it used to be. Used to be? Dolores spun to face me. When he was nobody. When he was just a junior accountant. Now he's regional vice president, and you serve him this peasant food. Are you trying to insult him? Pamela picked up the bread basket and examined the homemade rolls with disdain. Did you actually bake these yourself? Like some kind of pioneer woman? You know bakeries exist, right? Victor had entered the room behind me. I could feel his embarrassment radiating off him in waves. He needed someone to blame, and I was the only target. I told her, Victor said, shaking his head. I told her just now that things need to change. But she doesn't listen. She never listens. Of course she doesn't, Dolores snapped. She's always been like this. Ungrateful. You gave her everything, Victor. This beautiful house, a comfortable life, and she can't even cook a proper meal. She spends all her time playing in the garden, Victor added, making candles, useless hobbies while I'm out there working 70 hours a week. Pamela laughed cruelly. Maybe she should take some cooking classes. Or better yet, just order from a decent restaurant. You can afford it now, Vic. The three of them stood in a circle around me, their words raining down like blows. Ungrateful, useless, simple, embarrassing. I stood in the center, my head slightly bowed. If anyone had looked closely, they would have seen that my shoulders were trembling. But it wasn't from tears. It was from the laughter I was struggling to contain. I lifted my head and smiled serenely. You're absolutely right, I said. This dinner isn't appropriate. Please, let me make it up to you. They stopped, surprised by my calm response. However, I continued, glancing at the clock on the wall, I think you might want to wait just a moment, because the main course is about to arrive. Before anyone could respond, the doorbell rang again. Victor's frown deepened. Now who is it? That, I said, walking toward the front door, would be our guests for the evening. I opened the door to reveal three people standing on the porch. The man in the center was tall, distinguished, in his early 60s, with silver hair and a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to prove his importance to anyone. Flanking him were two younger professionals, a man and a woman, each carrying leather briefcases. Good evening, Mrs. Harrison, the man in the center said, inclining his head respectfully. We're right on time, I trust? Perfect timing, Mr. Chen, I replied. Please, come in. The three of them entered my home with the ease of professionals accustomed to high-stakes meetings. They walked past Victor, Dolores, and Pamela without a second glance, as if my family members were furniture. Victor stepped forward, his regional vice president authority rising to the surface. Excuse me, who are you people? This is my house, and I didn't authorize any visitors. Mr. Chen didn't even look at Victor. He kept his gaze fixed on me, waiting for instructions. Victor, I said, this is Mr. David Chen. He's my attorney. Your attorney? Dolores scoffed. What do you need an attorney for? To protect your candle recipes? Mr. Chen's associates were setting up their briefcases on the coffee table, pulling out thick folders of documents. The room fell silent as everyone watched. Mr. Chen, I said, please proceed. Of course, Mrs. Harrison. Mr. Chen turned to face Victor for the first time. His expression was professionally neutral, but there was something underneath it, a hint of anticipation. Mr. Harrison, I'm here tonight to discuss the matter of asset separation, as per your request earlier this evening. Asset separation? Victor looked confused. What are you talking about? I just told Margaret that we're keeping our finances separate. That's between me and my wife. Indeed. And Mrs. Harrison has decided to honor your wishes. Mr. Chen pulled a document from one of the folders. However, in order to do so properly, we need to clarify a few matters regarding ownership. Ownership of what? Let's start with this property. Mr. Chen held up a deed. The house you're currently standing in, located at 447 Magnolia Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, approximately 4,000 square feet on 1.5 acres of land. What about it? Victor snapped. I've been paying the mortgage on this house for 28 years. Mr. Chen smiled faintly. I'm afraid you're mistaken, Mr. Harrison. This property was purchased in full, with cash, 30 years ago. 2 years before you and Mrs. Harrison were married. He turned the document so Victor could see. The deed is in the name of Margaret Ellen Harrison, née Whitmore. Solely, the silence that followed was absolute. Dolores was the first to break it. That's impossible. Victor bought this house. He told us he bought this house. I never said that, Mama, Victor said weakly. Margaret, what is this? I clasped my hands in front of me. You never asked, dear. You assumed, when we got married and moved in here, you assumed you were the provider. You assumed this was your house because you paid the monthly bills. But the truth is, there was never a mortgage. I owned this house free and clear before I ever met you. Victor's face had gone pale. But the mortgage payments I've been making went into a household expense account, I said, which I used for maintenance, repairs, and improvements. All documented, of course. Mr. Chen pulled out another folder. We can also discuss the vehicles, if you'd like. The BMW you drove home today, Mr. Harrison, is a company car, which will be reclaimed by your employer under certain circumstances. However, the Mercedes sedan in the garage and the Range Rover you've been using for golf trips. Let me guess, Victor said bitterly. They're in Margaret's name, purchased outright by Mrs. Harrison 4 and 6 years ago, respectively. Pamela had gone sheet white. Dolores was gripping the back of a chair for support. The furniture, Victor tried. The renovations we did last year, the new kitchen, the pool house, all financed by Mrs. Harrison's personal accounts, Mr. Chen confirmed. We have receipts, contracts, and bank statements for everything. Victor turned to face me. His eyes were wild, searching for something to hold on to. Margaret, where did you get this money? You sell candles at a farmer's market. You make maybe $200 a week. I looked at my husband, this man who had never once asked about my past, my family, my life before him. Victor, I said quietly, in 32 years of marriage, have you ever asked me what my maiden name was? He blinked. Whitmore. It's Whitmore. I've seen it on old documents. And did you ever think to look up that name? Silence. My father was Samuel Whitmore, I continued, founder of Whitmore Properties. Before he passed away, he built one of the largest commercial real estate portfolios in the Southeast. When he died, I inherited everything. Dolores gasped. Pamela's shopping bags fell from her hands. But you've been living like... Victor couldn't finish the sentence. Like a simple housewife? Like a woman who enjoys gardening and making candles? I tilted my head. Yes, I have. Because I wanted to live a normal life. I was tired of people treating me differently because of my money. I wanted a husband who loved me for me. I thought you were that man. Victor. Victor stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Mr. Chen cleared his throat. There's more, Mr. Harrison. More? Victor's voice cracked. Yes, the matter of your personal finances. Mr. Chen pulled out a thick ledger. Over the course of your marriage, Mrs. Harrison has tracked every expense that was charged to her accounts but presented as coming from your earnings. What expenses? Mr. Chen began to read. 5 years ago, you told your mother that you had purchased her a new home in Asheville, a lovely 3-bedroom house worth approximately $350,000. In reality, Mrs. Harrison paid for that property in full. Dolores, who had been about to open her mouth in protest, snapped it shut. 7 years ago, your sister Pamela wanted to open a boutique clothing store. You proudly gave her $50,000 in startup capital, which you claimed was from your bonus. The business failed within a year. The money came from Mrs. Harrison. Pamela made a small, choking sound. 3 years later, Pamela wanted to try again with a wellness spa. Another $45,000, also from Mrs. Harrison. That venture lasted 8 months. Then there was the food truck idea, I added helpfully, and the influencer coaching business, and the podcast studio. In total, Mr. Chen concluded, Mrs. Harrison has provided approximately $275,000 to support your mother's lifestyle and your sister's failed enterprises. Additionally, Mr. Harrison, your own personal expenses, including your golf club membership, your watch collection, your client entertainment nights, and various other expenditures total approximately $180,000 over the past decade, all of which Mrs. Harrison quietly covered. The number hung in the air. That's a total of $455,000, Mr. Chen said, which, under the separation of finances that you requested, Mr. Harrison, now constitutes a debt owed to Mrs. Harrison. Victor swayed on his feet. 455. I don't believe this, Dolores said, but her voice had lost its sharpness. This is all lies, some kind of con. I assure you, Mrs. Harrison Sr., all documentation is authentic and verified. Mr. Chen gestured to his associates. We're prepared to provide copies for your review. But I wasn't finished. There's one more thing, I said. Victor looked at me with the eyes of a drowning man. Your promotion, I said. Regional Vice President. $15,000 a month. You were so proud. What about it? Did you ever wonder why you, of all the candidates, were selected? You weren't the most qualified. You weren't the hardest working. Your performance reviews have been mediocre for years. Victor's jaw tightened. I earned that promotion. You were given that promotion, I corrected. As a favor. To me? I walked to the window and looked out at the garden I had tended for 30 years. Your firm, Caldwell and Associates, was struggling last year. Losing clients, hemorrhaging money. They were 3 months away from having to lay off half their staff, including several senior partners. Victor said nothing. Then, miraculously, they received a massive new client, a real estate investment company that needed comprehensive accounting services for their entire portfolio. A retainer worth millions annually. It saved the firm. I turned back to face my husband. That company was Whitmore Holdings. My company. I am the sole owner and CEO. If a bomb had gone off in that living room, the effect couldn't have been more devastating. Victor sat down heavily on the sofa that didn't belong to him. Dolores grabbed onto Pamela, both of them unsteady. Pamela began to cry. When I agreed to bring the account to Caldwell, I continued, I made one request. Give my husband a promotion. Give him the title and salary he's always dreamed of. I wanted to see what he would do with it. I wanted to know if, after finally reaching his goals, he would come home and thank me for supporting him all these years. If he would appreciate our life together. My voice hardened. Instead, you came home and told me you were separating our finances. You called me useless. You said I contribute nothing. You let your mother and sister insult me in my own home. Victor's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. So yes, dear. I agree. Let's separate our finances. Let's be very clear about what belongs to whom. I looked at Mr. Chen. Please proceed. Mr. Chen pulled out his phone. I've been in contact with the senior partners at Caldwell and Associates. They're expecting my call. No, Victor whispered. Margaret, please. Mr. Chen dialed. The phone rang twice before someone answered. Mr. Patterson? This is David Chen, calling on behalf of Mrs. Harrison. Yes, Margaret Harrison. That's correct. He paused. I'm calling to inform you that Whitmore Holdings will be terminating its contract with Caldwell and Associates, effective immediately. Furthermore, we're requesting that Victor Harrison be removed from his position. I could hear shouting on the other end of the line. Yes, I understand this is sudden. No, there will be no negotiation. The decision is final. Additionally, Mrs. Harrison has instructed me to ensure that Mr. Harrison is blacklisted from all firms that do business with Whitmore Holdings or any of our affiliated companies. Mr. Harrison has instructed me to ensure that Mr. Harrison— Chen's voice was pleasant, almost cheerful. Given our portfolio's reach, that covers approximately 70% of the major accounting firms in the Southeast. "Good evening, Mr. Patterson." He ended the call. Victor sat frozen on the sofa. His $15,000 a month career had just evaporated in 60 seconds. "You can't do this," Dolores said, but her voice was small now. This is cruel." "Cruel?" I turned to face her. "For 30 years, I've been called stupid, useless, and boring by you and your daughter. You've taken my money while looking down at me. You've eaten at my table while mocking my cooking. You've lived in the house I paid for while calling it your son's. And tonight, you stood in my home and called me a peasant." I stepped closer to Dolores. "The $350,000 house you live in? The one you've been bragging about to all your friends, telling them your successful son bought it for you? I can take it back. It's in my name. You're just a tenant who's never paid a dime of rent." Dolores's face crumpled. "And you?" I turned to Pamela. "Almost $200,000 spent on your failed dreams. Fashion boutique, wellness spa, food truck, podcast studio. And what do you have to show for it? Nothing. Because you've never worked a day in your life. You just expected money to fall into your lap." Pamela was sobbing openly now. "Margaret," Victor tried again. His voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was wrong. Please, can we talk about this privately?" "Privately?" I laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. "You didn't insult me privately. You humiliated me in front of your family. Why should my response be any different?" Mr. Chen stepped forward. "Mrs. Harrison, shall I proceed with the eviction notice?" Victor's head snapped up. "Eviction? This is my property, Victor. You have no legal right to be here. None of you do." "But I'm your husband. We've been married for 32 years. "My attorney will be filing for divorce in the morning," I said calmly, "on grounds of financial fraud and emotional abuse. Given the evidence we've collected, which includes recordings of tonight's conversation, I expect the proceedings to be quite straightforward." "Recordings?" Pamela looked around wildly. "You recorded us?" "Security system," Mr. Chen explained. "State-of-the-art. Audio and video in all common areas. Perfectly legal in North Carolina, with proper signage, which is posted on the front door." Dolores looked like she might faint. One of Mr. Chen's associates moved toward her, probably to catch her if she fell. "So here's what's going to happen," I said. "The three of you are going to leave my house tonight. You'll take nothing but what you came in with. Tomorrow, my attorneys will be in contact regarding the debt you owe me and the terms of Victor's divorce settlement." "Where are we supposed to go?" Victor asked weakly. I walked to a small drawer near the front door and pulled something out. It was an old, worn leather wallet, brown and cracked from years of use. I remembered the day Victor threw this wallet away. It was 5 years into our marriage when he got his first significant raise. He said it wasn't up to his standards anymore, and he bought a fancy new designer wallet to replace it. I kept the old one. I don't know why. Maybe I was already beginning to see who he really was. I tossed the wallet at Victor's feet. "There's $50 in there," I said. "Enough for a cab and maybe a night at a budget motel. You'll have to figure out the rest on your own." Victor stared at the wallet on the floor. He didn't pick it up. "You wanted separate finances," I reminded him. "You wanted to keep your money for yourself. Well, congratulations. Everything you have is now officially yours, and everything I have is mine." I gestured around the room. "Unfortunately for you, that includes pretty much everything you thought belonged to you." Dolores had started crying, ugly, heaving sobs. Pamela was hyperventilating. Victor just sat there, broken. Mr. Chen signaled to his associates. Within moments, 2 security guards in black uniforms entered through the front door. They were large, professional, and utterly calm. "Please escort our guests to the property line," Mr. Chen instructed. "No!" Dolores shrieked. "You can't do this. I'm his mother. I have rights." "You have no rights to property you don't own, mister," Chen replied coolly. "Please don't make this difficult." The guards moved forward. Gently but firmly, they helped Dolores to her feet and guided her toward the door. Pamela followed, clutching her empty designer purse, mascara running down her cheeks. Victor was the last to move. He bent down slowly and picked up the old wallet. He opened it, saw the crumpled bills inside, and something in him seemed to die. He looked at me one last time. "Margaret, I loved you. Once. No, Victor, I said. You loved the idea of a wife who was beneath you, someone you could feel superior to. You never loved me. You don't even know who I am. He had no response to that. He turned and walked to the door, his expensive shoes clicking against my marble floor for the last time. I watched from the window as the three of them gathered on the sidewalk outside my gate. Dolores was hitting Pamela's arm, blaming her for something. Pamela was crying and pointing at Victor. Victor just stood there, staring at the wallet in his hands. The iron gate closed automatically behind them. Mr. Chen appeared at my side. "It's done, Mrs. Harrison. They're gone." I watched my husband, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law huddled on the sidewalk in the gathering darkness. They looked small, pathetic, like strangers. "No," I said softly. "This is just the beginning." 2 months passed. For me, those months were a revelation. Without Victor's constant criticism, without Dolores and Pamela's monthly visits demanding money and offering insults, my home became peaceful. I spent my mornings in the garden, my afternoons managing my company, and my evenings doing whatever I pleased. I returned to Whitmore Holdings full-time. The staff, many of whom had never met me in person, were stunned to discover that the quiet wife of an accountant was actually their CEO. I restructured operations, expanded into 3 new markets, and increased quarterly profits by 20%. I also donated $200,000 to a women's shelter in Charlotte. I knew what it felt like to be trapped in a home where you weren't valued. I wanted to help others escape. Meanwhile, Victor's world continued to collapse. True to my word, he was blacklisted from every reputable accounting firm in the region. His former colleagues, who used to invite him to golf outings and lunch meetings, suddenly didn't return his calls. His fancy suits and watches, the ones that weren't purchased with my money and therefore seized as part of the debt, were sold for a fraction of their value at secondhand shops. Dolores's beautiful house in Asheville was reclaimed. She moved in with Pamela, but Pamela's apartment was a cramped 2-bedroom in a mediocre part of town, paid for by the last of her savings. 3 generations of Harrison women crammed together, with no one to blame but themselves and each other. Victor eventually found work. Not as an accountant, no one would hire him for that. He got a job as a data entry clerk at a small insurance company, making $16 an hour. He rented a room in a boarding house, shared a bathroom with 3 other tenants, and ate microwave dinners every night. I know all this because I kept tabs on him. Not out of cruelty, out of, I don't know, curiosity, maybe, or perhaps a lingering sense of responsibility for the man I had spent half my life with. One evening, about 3 months after the separation, I was leaving a charity gala at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Charlotte. I was wearing a sapphire blue gown, diamonds at my throat, escorted by Mr. Chen and 2 members of my board. My driver had brought the Bentley around to the front entrance. As I walked toward the car, I saw him. Victor was across the street, standing near a bus stop. He was wearing a cheap windbreaker and jeans, his hair unkempt, his face gaunt. He was holding a paper bag, probably containing whatever meager dinner he had scraped together. Our eyes met. Time seemed to stop. The wealthy widow in diamonds and the ruined man at the bus stop, looking at each other across a gulf that had nothing to do with the physical distance between us. Victor's lips moved. I couldn't hear him, but I could read the word. "Margaret." Mr. Chen noticed my hesitation. "Mrs. Harrison, is everything all right?" I watched Victor for a long moment. Then I made a decision. "Wait here," I said. I crossed the street, my heels clicking against the asphalt. Victor watched me approach with the wary, defeated eyes of a man who expected nothing good. "Margaret," he said again. His voice was rough. You look beautiful." "Victor, I've been trying to reach you. Your lawyers won't let me through. I just wanted to." "To what?" He swallowed hard. "To apologize. For everything. For how I treated you. For what I said. I was wrong. I was so wrong." I looked at this man I had once loved. He had aged 10 years in 3 months. The arrogance was gone from his posture, the smugness erased from his face. He was just a tired, broken old man standing at a bus stop. "Do you remember," I said slowly, "when we first met, at that charity auction in 1992? Victor nodded. "You were wearing a yellow sundress. You bid $500 on a painting of sunflowers. You thought I was crazy." Spending that much on art. I thought you were beautiful. And interesting. And kind. You never asked where I got the money for that painting. Victor closed his eyes. No. I never asked you anything. I just assumed... You assumed I was poor. That I was lucky to have you. I know. I know that now. He opened his eyes. They were wet. Margaret, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking, is there any way? Any chance? I let him trail off. I let the question hang in the cold night air. Then I reached into my clutch and pulled out a business card. I handed it to him. Victor looked at it, confused. It was a card for a construction company, Turner and Associates, one of the many firms that did contract work for Whitmore Holdings. What is this? They're hiring, I said. General laborers. The pay isn't great, but it's honest work. They don't ask too many questions about your past. Victor stared at the card. Then he stared at me. You're helping me? I'm not helping you, Victor. I'm giving you an opportunity to help yourself. What you do with it is up to you. His hands trembled as he held the card. Margaret, I don't understand. After everything I did, you were a terrible husband, I said plainly. You were selfish, arrogant, and cruel. You let your family treat me like a servant while you stood by and watched. You took everything I gave you and never once said thank you. Victor flinched with each word. But, I continued, I also let it happen. For 32 years, I could have spoken up at any time. I could have shown you who I really was. I chose not to. I thought if I was patient enough, kind enough, giving enough, you would eventually see my value. I was wrong too. So what now? I looked at him steadily. Now you learn what it means to earn something, really earn it. Not through handouts from your wife or gifts from your mother, through your own sweat and effort. Maybe in a few years, when you've paid back some of what you owe and proven you can stand on your own 2 feet, we can have a conversation. A conversation about what? About whether there's anything left worth saving. I didn't wait for his response. I turned and walked back to my waiting car, my diamonds catching the light from the street lamps. As the Bentley pulled away, I looked through the rear window. Victor was still standing at the bus stop, holding the business card in both hands like it was a treasure. He looked up and watched my car disappear into the night. Mr. Chen sat beside me in the back seat. That was generous of you, Mrs. Harrison. Was it? You could have left him to rot. No one would have blamed you. I thought about that. Maybe. But I spent 32 years building a life with that man. Some of those years were good. Most weren't. But I'm not interested in revenge, Mr. Chen. I'm interested in justice. And what does justice look like? I smiled, thinking of Victor at the bus stop, holding a business card for a manual labor job, the man who had once bragged about his $15,000 salary, now facing the prospect of earning $15 an hour carrying lumber. Justice, I said, looks like people getting exactly what they asked for. Victor had wanted to separate our finances. He had wanted to keep his money for himself. He had wanted to be independent. Now he was. And I hoped, for both our sakes, that he would finally learn what that really meant. The car drove on through the night, carrying me back to my beautiful home, my thriving company, my peaceful garden. Behind me, somewhere in the darkness, my husband was starting over. Maybe one day he would become someone worth knowing. Maybe not. That was his journey now, not mine. I had my own path to walk. And for the first time in 32 years, I was walking it alone. It felt like freedom. Did you enjoy the story? What city are you listening from? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to support me so I can keep bringing you more stories like this, you can send a super thanks. I truly appreciate your kindness. I look forward to reading your thoughts on this story. You can see 2 new life stories on the screen that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story. With love and respect.